Hey people, Frank Cement here. Working on Monster today and tuning up the motor, getting it ready for the injection system. I already have the injection system installed, and well, weather's changing and things running like crap in the cold, especially when I first started up. So time for a tune-up. That's what this video is going to be about, tuning up a motor to get the most out of the parts. I'm not buying any parts. I'm just looking everything over. I got a miss on startup. It goes away once it warms up. So I'm suspecting that the plugs just need regapped and wires need cleaned. I'll be making points and tips on how to do this. I think nowadays you pretty much just run into the store and just buy plugs. Everything else is part of the motor now, and these are things that, I don't know, I feel just kind of got lost in well, the world of modern electronics. So this will be a flashback on tuning up a motor. Couple things you do, and I got some test equipment out and show you how to test the parts individually and put them back on. So here we go. Okay, when I figured I'd do a video on it, I already got the plugs out on one side and gapped and put back in and tested and all that, and the wires. Let me tell you about my setup first. I have a Hypertech high performance high voltage coil. These things work great even on stock motors. They save a lot of gas, but since you're running more power through the plug, it'll eat the plug up quicker. It'll definitely show if you need to change the spark plugs. Anyway, Hypertech coil. I got Excel race wires. These wires have the fiberglass wire inside of them, of course, plus it has the stainless steel wrapped all the way through, so it's low resistant wires to help get the spark from the cap down to the plugs. They're not pure stainless steel wire. I've ran pure stainless steel wire from the cap to the plugs. It really doesn't matter. I get the same performance out of this setup as I did with the solid stainless steel wire. So in case anybody was wondering, but I like these better. These were given to me actually 15 years ago. I've been running these since I got them. These wires are 15 years old, and I could clean them up, and the rubber's still soft. There's no hard spots in the wire. As long as you take care of them, they'll last forever. Had no issues with these wires whatsoever, except for the motor puking oil on them. Clean off the boots, and they're good for another 5,000 miles. Okay, let's get to this side. I got to pull all the plugs. Everything hasn't been touched yet, and as you can see, motor's cold. Haven't fired it up today yet. Injection system's all hooked up and running. I got to tune it in, so I want to make sure the motor's running right first before I do that, and that's what this is about. Okay, everybody knows how to pull a plug, so I'm not going to show that. When I get the plug out, that's when the video is going to start. Actually, I'm going to pull all 4 of them out. That's how I like to do it, one side at a time. And what helps doing that is having these clips holding the wires to the cylinders in a row where they go, so I know this is number 1, this is 3, 5, and 7. So when I put them back on, I just pop, 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 and they're on. Same thing on this side. If you notice, the clip holds the wires in order. This goes to 2 4, 6, and 8. Okay. Okay, I got the plugs and the wires laid out. The wires go to the corresponding plugs as I took them out of the motor. Everything's in order, this being 2, 4, 6, 8. And let's start with the electrode. Everybody is pretty familiar with looking at the electrode. You look at the color of the porcelain. You look at the electrode, you make sure the electrode has that sharp edge. If it's rounded at all, then it's time to replace the plug because the spark has eaten the edge off. Spark likes sharp edges, so that's where it's going to wear out first. Okay, everybody knows how to do that part. Let's take it a couple steps further. What you want to do is you look at the threads. Threads are clean. Any gunk on the threads will wear the threads out in the head. Any grease or oil, of course, means oil is leaking down onto the plug or the combustion chamber is burning oil. All threads are clean except for this one. That could be probably oil seeping in from right here from the cylinder head going into the thread. It doesn't reach the edge here. So this part's dry. The rest of the threads are wet, and you can see the oil is in between there. So yeah, it's leaking from the outside and the heat's pulling the oil into the threads. No big deal. I got a valve cover leak, I guess. Next step you want to do is look at the porcelain. Just grab the plug and bring it out here. Look at the porcelain for cracks. Any kind of cracks is going to mean the plug's shorting out. It's going to look like a hairline crack. It's going to be a black line. If you need to, you take a rag and wipe it off, and the dirt will stay into the crack to where you can see it. And then you make sure where the plug wire connects to, it's rigid, it's not moving any. That would mean the porcelain would be cracked somewhere, probably down in here, if this whole thing was just turning a tad. This whole thing should be solid. And you want to look at, see if there's any kind of dirt or oil on the porcelain. That would make the plug short out. If you look at all the plugs on the porcelain, they're all clean, so there's no spark traveling from inside of the boot down the porcelain and going to ground onto the threads. That's pretty much everything on looking at the plugs. Okay, let's look at the wires. You're looking at the wires for wet spots, oil, water dripping on them. Around here, everything's dry, dirty but dry, so that's a good sign that all the spark going through the wire is reaching the plug. You look down inside of the boot for carbon traces. That would signify a short. They're dirty, but I don't see any carbon traces. So the boots will get wiped off, and take a rag and wipe the inside out. Okay, next step is going to be circuit testing the plugs. I'll do them real quick. This is going to make sure that the electricity is going from the terminal to the electrode, and it's going to be a resistance. What you do, I don't know the resistance per plug. It's different per brand, per plug. So what you want to do is you just match up the same number from plug to plug. Okay. Okay, gotta clean the electrode and the end off to get a good reading. Okay, touch one end, touch the electrode, and you get the reading. Seven 752, 751. Yeah. 618. Six five. Yep, 6 5. And then 7 3. Okay, I did all circuit tests on the spark plug, and they're within 1 to 2 digits, and that's okay. A little variation on how the plugs are made, no big deal, but the idea here is to get a reading through the plug, and that was successful on all 4 of them, so they're all good. They're all going to throw a spark, and next step would be to see the spark. So I have a little test, a little spark plug tester I made out of the mag and this riding mower or lawnmower cylinder head, and when you spin it, it throws a spark through the plug. So let's see that. Here's my little tester. It's a Magneto off of an old engine. I made a hand crank for it, and I wired it into, it's about a 3.5 Briggs cylinder head to screw the plug into, and then I made a wire to hook up to it, and then the cylinder head gets grounded to the mag to complete the circuit. Just hook it up, and just watch the spark. There we go. Boy, I can't really see it. There we go. See the spark? Nice good spark. It's clicking every time the mag fires, so that plug's good. I'll do all 4 like that. Pretty much just one more step to testing those plugs. Make sure they're all firing. I don't know how many times I got plugs from the parts store, and you get a bad one out of 8. So I like to do this every time I do a tune-up, whether I'm buying plugs or just reusing them. Here's a little tip: when you go to the parts store and you see the salesman grabbing the box of spark plugs, don't let him slam it on the counter. That just pisses me off. The plugs are made of glass. You slam on the counter, you're going to crack the porcelain. You know, I would yell at him. And doing the circuit test on all 8 of them, and if you get one that's like 4 or 5 digits off, take that plug back. That plug ain't working right. You know, be annoying as you can. The dude slammed it on the table. You got a bad plug out of it. You know, no telling how many times those things were thrown around or whatever. Can't count the times where I got 8 plugs, put them in this thing, and I got a bad one. Motor ran like crap, so that's when I started doing this stuff. And next step is doing the wires. Let's talk about the wires. The wires are not pretty bad. They're a little dirty. What I like to do is just wipe off the whole wire. And when you're wiping it off, put a little tension onto them. You're looking for cracks or punctures in the wire. When you pull on them just a tad, you know, straighten them out. You don't want to stretch them. Stretching them is a no-no because you'll rip the fiberglass wire on the inside. Just hold them straight, bend them. Any hard spots, bend them. You're looking for cracks, and inspect the whole wire. You never know if it's leaning on the exhaust manifold and burned through or something like that. Next, you look at the boot. That dirt in there can conduct electricity to make a short in the plug, so clean it out. I just take a rag around a screwdriver and wipe it off. Make sure you have the metal clip on the inside that clamps onto the plug. Sometimes you pull these off and that metal clip stays on the plug, so you want to reattach it. After you clean everything off, then we'll move to the next step. Okay, let's take a closer look at how I cleaned them. Shined them up okay. If this was a nice summer day, these things would be spotless and the red would be popping, but it's like, I don't know, 30 degrees out, so I did a rush job. One thing I forgot to mention was don't forget to inspect this side. This side has a potential of shorting out the plug. Also, the oil can get onto the wire, seep down in between the boot and the wire, and a spark could travel up through there and on the outside of the plug wire boot and ground out. So pay attention to that part too. I also cleaned the inside of the boot. As you can see, it's all red now. All four of them nice and clean. No potential for a spark to go down that and short out the plug. So all four of them. Okay, next step would be to use a silicone grease or lithium grease. Lithium grease is non-conductive. This is let's see, there we go, motor assembly white grease. It's also for dielectric use also, if you read the back. And what you want to do is you coat the inside of the boot. Everybody knows that it's going to keep out the water, but what you don't know is it needs to keep out the air also. The air, if it gets down inside there, will burn the fiberglass wire like a fuse. Just because the air's getting down to it, it'll give it a chance to burn. And if that wire loses contact with the clip, then it won't reach the plug and that spark is going to go somewhere else. So you want to keep the water and also the air. The air is more common to happen than water getting into it, and that would be the #1 fail of a spark plug wire. So keep the air out of it to keep it sparking is a definite must. And if you look down in there and you see the wire, the fiberglass wire, burnt off, then you would simply just pull the boot off, trim down the wire a little bit, bend it over and reattach the clip and put the boot back on, and you're good to go. You're maybe shortening the wire about that much, unless you're doing it like 20 times. You'll need a new wire, but if it's like the first time, one wire out of a whole set, you're going to save the set. So keeping the air out is just as important as keeping the water out. Okay, I'm going to squeeze a bunch of this dielectric grease down inside here in all the boots. I'm going to finish cleaning that setup and pretty much put it back together. Since I have the orders all laid out, there's going to be no problem hooking the wires back up to where I don't have to worry about crossing the wire. So that's pretty much a quick tune-up. Oh, you can also circuit test all the wires too, the same way you circuit tested the plugs to make sure there's no breaks in the wire. Stretching the wire would make it break. And that's what you're looking for. See if the spark's going to make it to the plug. You can also circuit test the cap too that way. The setting on the digital, I like using digital ohm meters because it's more accurate, and I set it on 20K to get the reading. You're not looking for a specific reading, you're just making sure all the readings show up, and of course the longer the spark plug wire, the more resistance you're going to have, so the number is going to be, I believe, higher for the longer the wire. Shorter wire is going to have low resistance, so that number is going to be lower. Keep that in mind when you're testing the wires. Okay, that should be it for the tune-up, I guess. I'll show me starting this thing on a cold start on a cold winter day. Okay, till then. Okay, I'm ready for final assembly of the ignition system, and a couple more tips coming towards your way before I fire this thing up. Take a look at what I got done, and take it from there. Okay, I got all the boots lubed up, ready to put back on the plugs. Plugs are cleaned, gapped, and ready to go in. There you go. Okay, let's talk about anti-seize. Anti-seize is grease with metal shavings in it. It helps keep the bolt from rusting together to whatever you're putting it in. Everybody says, oh, you should put that on the spark plugs, but for this motor and for any other motor that I have that has aluminum heads, my Escort has aluminum heads, I really don't like using this stuff for spark plugs, because don't get me wrong, it works great. This is what you use to put in spark plugs, but these plugs don't stay in the motor that long to where you have to worry about the plug rusting to where it don't come out. Okay, what the deal is when you put this stuff on the threads, put it in the motor. Once you fire the motor up, the grease will bake off because it's a high temp area. This happens with exhaust bolts too, but I would put this on exhaust bolts just because, to keep them from seizing into the part you're putting it in. Now when you put this stuff, well let's start with the anti-seize. The right one you're supposed to use for spark plugs is the copper, not the nickel, the copper. The copper's for high temp areas. Okay, you put it on the plug and you put it in the motor. As soon as you fire up that motor, the grease is going to burn off, so the only thing left is going to be the copper left on the spark plug threads. Now, driving around for 5,000 miles, you go and change that plug, you go and loosen that plug, that plug will be tight coming out all the way because the copper shavings is in the threads. That's why I don't like using it. Now if you guys run into those motors to where you have 100,000 mile spark plugs, then yes, put this on there. This will help to get the plug out after 100,000 miles or 10,000 miles or 20,000 miles. Nowadays you can run plugs more than 5,000 miles. So, but for me, I like to put the plugs in there dry with nothing on the threads. That way you screw them in all the way down by hand, and when you go and change them 5,000 miles later, when you break them loose, they come right out. That's what I like to do. Everybody else, do your own thing, but that's what I like to do. I keep this motor tuned up. I really don't have an issue with the ignition system. This is a completely custom ignition system for this motor, and I never had an issue to where water or oil seizing the plug into the block, because I'm pulling them out so many times and putting them back in. I don't have to worry about the plug rusting into the block. Okay, So I'm going to put this thing back together, and the next shot will be me firing it up on a cold start. Okay, I got everything together. Let's see if this thing will fire up. Hopefully I don't have a miss when it's warming up, so that was the reason for cleaning up the ignition system. Okay. Definitely a lot better than what it was before. First I got a manual choke on there, so you heard me starting it up, playing with the choke. But the choke's off right now and the motor's still cold. See? It's a Quadrajet. These things always run like crap when they're cold, but the thing don't have any miss. That's what I was shooting for. Okay. Say it's a success. Okay, it started pretty rough, but I have a manual choke, so I'm always fighting it. Plus, it has a Quadrajet carburetor. Those things are known for, well, sucking when the motor's cold. So, the motor's got to warm up. This thing will scream. But, thing fired up. No missing in the cylinders, which is what I was after, Kate. Any more interest on this, just leave a comment down below. Any questions, leave a comment. I'll be glad to answer them. Like, share the video, show an interest, and I'll do more automotive repairs. A lot of how-tos. I've been doing this for well over 20 years. So I got a lot of tech to share if anybody's interested. The injection system is all hooked up. I've been playing with it. The power adder. And anybody guesses what the fuel is, I'll release the videos. I've been making videos on that part too. And as soon as somebody guesses what the fuel is, I'll release the videos, or in a week or so I'll release the videos anyway. So it's a win-win. If you guys don't want to guess, just wait for it. If you guys guess it, then I'll release the videos. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. And rate, comment, subscribe, and I'm Prankster Man. Bye.